Please check my description box for all the detail, especially you need to have written pattern. Also, if you never ever knitted my Raglan dog sweater, you might have to go to the basic tutorial because I'm not going to do step by step. I want to focus about cable knitting, also how to connect the sleeve as well. Well, as you can see, the cable is actually quite easy, C4F and C4B. However, what I want to talk about is transition from rib to cable and going down and transition from cable to rib. Nice and smooth. That's what I want to talk about. Also, how to minimize the gap when you connect the sleeves. I always talk about it. However, I'm going to use a little bit different technique. The concept is same. However, it's a little bit different because as some people still saying you can't really minimize the gap there. Okay, I'll talk about it later. Anyway, so let me actually show you the cable here. I was using knit to purl to rib. And then whenever you knit enough for rib, you start cable knitting. But can you see the transition? Knit to purl to rib, and suddenly C4B or C4F, which you need 4 stitch, but nice and smooth the transition there, which means I have to increase 2 stitch and kind of right and left twist and not disturbing purl stitch, right? Because C4B, C4F, super easy, but you need 4 stitch. And coming down, no disturbing. And then suddenly you change to knit to purl to rib again, which means I have to decrease. However, I want to keep the cable knitting also decrease. That's what I want to talk about today. Here is my old cable knitting hat. As you can see, again, knit to purl to rib. And whenever I start cable knitting there, I have to actually create the new foundation for cable because cable needs 4 knit stitch. And then in between cables, I, add purl 2 stitch, which means it's very obvious you have to disturb the purl stitch for both sides of the cable, right? So can you see it's not nice transition? This is okay, completely okay. However, if you want to use this, nice and smooth transition from knit to purl to cable, knit to purl to rib to cable, that's better. More professional look like if you want to. That's what I'm going to talk about. Nice and smooth, no disturbing to purl stitch, right? Anyway, again, this is okay. You can actually disturb any stitch you want if you don't mind. But this is just another technique. So let's get started. Again, as I told you earlier, I'm not going to show you step by step. I started with cast on number 72, which is multiple of 12. And I started with the rib repeat of knit 2 and purl 2. I knitted it about 3 inch. It's up to you. You just have to make a rib until your desired length. 2 inch, 4 inch, it doesn't really matter. And now I want to divide by 4 sections. Back piece, 2 sleeves, and front. If you ever knitted my Raglan sweater, you know how to do. Find out your magic number and following my instruction. However, this time I had to adjust the numbers because when I make the plan for cable, I want to start with knit stitch and end with knit stitch for my back piece. Because I decide I am going to add 2 cable both side of leash opening. So it's really up to you. If you want to add just a 1 cable each of the leash opening, that's fine. So you really have to kind of make a plan. Again, so for my back piece, inside of the marker, back piece marker has to be knit, which means outside of the marker should be purl, because this is knit 2 and purl 2 rib. And it's really up to you. You know, where you want to add the cable. But whenever you add cable, has to be underneath of the knitting stitch, because cable needs knitting stitch, doesn't it? Right? Anyway, so just make a plan where you want to add cable and keep the purl stitch. All right, so I'm not going to change any foundation for my back piece. Rest of them, it's gonna be all knit because I'm not adding any cable, so I don't need the purl stitch. I'm going to add a couple more marker. That's for the leash opening. Also, that's for the where I am not going to add any cables. Okay, so those 2 knit stitch line, I'm going to add cable, and rest of them just a purl. And the other side of the purple marker, this one and that one, I'm going to add cable, and in between I am going to keep purl stitch. So you know my plan is, right? So all prep row. Next row, you just have to all knit except the purl stitch you want to keep. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to change the marker because clip-on marker, it's really hard for me to do the increasing in cable and all that. So I'm going to add just a regular marker while I'm knitting on it. Again, I want to keep purl stitch just outside of the cable knitting. So that's gotta be for my back piece. Rest of the parts like sleeves and front, all knit. Okay, so here comes knit over knit stitch, and here purl over purl stitch because that's in between cable knitting. You know what I'm saying? And within the purple marker, that's gonna be all knit because I'm not adding any cable. So knit in between purple marker. And then purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, and rest of them all knit. Anyway, easiest way to say would be just keep the knit stitch and purl stitch where you want to add cable. Right there, just before the purple marker. All knit in between purple marker, and after that, keep the rib, and rest of the section all knit. I hope you understand. So anywhere you want to add cable, keep the knit stitch, and outside of the cable, purl. All right? And then after that, increasing kicks in. At every raglan marker, you have to increase on row number 1. On row number 3, you only increase inside of the back, also inside of the front piece. And row number 2 and row number 4, no increasing. All right? And then increasing method should be make one right and make one left. On top left, I put the written pattern. Let's start. This is increasing row number 1. Knit 1 to start. Left side of the marker. That's beginning marker, but also raglan marker. And use the running thread. Then make one left because left side of the marker. And after that, knit over knit stitch and purl over purl stitch. That's the foundation of cable part, right? And I will have to do something right on the knit stitch. Now I have to increase 2 stitch on knit stitch section. Okay? If you want to add C4B or C4F, there's a different method, but super easy. Okay? So I will do C4F, which is left twist. So if you want to add left twist there, you have to do knit 1, the first stitch. And the second, you have to do increase knit front and back. So this is 1 stitch increase, and I have to increase 1 more. Then knit front. So I just increased 2 stitch. If you want to add C4F, which is left twist, you have to do knit 1, then knit front, back, and front. Then 2 purl. Now I am going to add C4B. C4B is right twist. So on the first knit stitch, you have to increase 2 stitch. Knit front, back, then knit 1 more. I have to increase 2 stitch within one stitch. So knit front, back, front, then knit second stitch. Now you have 4 stitch within 2, and then purl. Again, in between purl marker, no cable for me, so all knit. You can add cable, but I'm not going to, because I want to put the leash there, leash opening there, stuff like that. So I'm gonna just knit all the way. And here comes, so after the purl marker, purl 2. Then again, I am going to add cable there, so I have to do knit front, back, front. So I increase first, which means C4B. Okay? C4B means right twist. Then purl 2. Next, I'm trying to add C4F, so knit 1 first. And then knit front, back, front. If you do this method, it looks a little bit like, left twist and right twist. That's why I increase this way. Okay? And now you have 4 stitch instead of 2. So you don't disturb any purl stitch in between cables, right? I'm actually already move on to raglan increase. So don't forget, I'm still on increasing row number 1, which you have to increase every raglan marker, right? And increasing method is a little bit different. On top of the cable stitch 2, you have to use the knit front, back, front. All right? And again, for the cable, I already increased from 2 stitch to 4. So you just have to start following the cable pattern. And one more thing I want to mention, the increasing pattern has 4 rows, and same as cable pattern. You have to just knit on row number 1, 2, and 4. And cabling pattern is only row number 3. So here is row number 3. Again, increasing row number 3 only increase within back and front, right here and right there. That's the front part. And inside of the back as well. For sleeve part, I'm not going to increase. All right? And again, as I just said that, on row number 3, the cable knitting kicks in. So let's start. There's 2 different patterns, right? C4B and C4F. Cable for back and cable for front. So it's a little bit busy here, right? Increasing for back piece and then cable. So this is purl 2 stitch. Now cable knitting. So right there, I did left shift, which means C4F. So pick up the 2 stitch and put the cable needle out front, and then knit 2 from left needle, then come back to cable needle, then knit 2 there. This is cable for front. Cable for front creates left shift. That's why the foundation increasing, I did knit 1 K F B F. All right, then now I am going to do right shift. So C4B, pick up 2 stitch and put the cable needle at the back, then knit 2 from left needle, then come back to cable needle and knit 2 from cable needle. This is C4B, which creates right shift. C4F creates left shift. C4B creates right shift. And the other side, the first cable, right shift, and second cable, left shift. All right, so just do the purl over purl stitch and knit over knit until next cable pattern. So in between purple marker, I'm not adding any cable, so just all knit, right? And 2 more cable pattern coming. So this is so easy. Like I said, I kind of want to talk about the transition from rib knit to purl to, and I don't want to disturb any, a purl and then increase. Now I'm doing cable, which is C4B. Pick up 2 stitch and put the cable needle back, and I just knit the 2 stitch from left and then come back to cable needle and then knit 2 from cable needle. This is C4B, creates right shift. And then purl 2, then now C4F. So pick up 2 with cable needle and leave the cable needle out front, then knit 2 from left needle, come back to cable needle, then knit 2 from cable needle. This is C4F. That's about it. And row number 4, no increasing and no cable, which is just knit over knit stitch and purl over purl stitch. And I already started increasing at the raglan line, right? So on row number 3, it's a little bit busy because increasing and cabling, but super easy. So after this, just keep knitting, keep knitting. Next clip should be for leash opening, but I'm not gonna really talk about, very, very detailed, just a little bit. And after leash opening, you just keep knitting until the sleeve is long enough to meet under dog's front leg. Again, if you never watch my Raglan dog sweater, maybe you should watch the basic one first. And here comes leash opening. I'm gonna actually use in between purple marker there. Just bind off. I believe I have 12 stitch, something like that. I'm going to bind off where I want to add leash opening, right? And then just keep knitting rest of the row until wherever no more stitch is. And then now you have to add new cast. Same number as you bind off. Use your thumb or digital finger, whatever, and then adding just new cast. And after that, just keep knitting. You know, pretend nothing happened, right? Just make sure purl stitch or knit stitch. All right. And now I want to talk about one optional. So for the back piece, I'm adding stitches, right? On row number 1 and row number 4. I'm increasing. So around the raglan line for back piece, I had enough stitch count. Can you see? 4, 6 there, and then 2. So total 8 now. So I decide I am going to add one more cable there. So I just make purl 2 and last 4 stitch right here. Well, not last 4, next 4 stitch. I am going to add cable pattern. So this is just the optional, you know. If you want to add one more, you can do that as long as you have enough stitch count. So you just need 4 stitch for cable, right? And you need 2 purl stitch on the other side of the cable. You know what I'm saying? So at least 8 stitch. Well, 7 is good, but you know, 8 would be ideal for me. Anyway, I think I just add C4B. So kind of sandwich, right? C4B, C4F, and C4B, something like that. And the other side of the leash opening, same thing. After the purl, I add one more cable. There we go. And then after adding new cable, make purl. Why? Because if you knit purl stitch in between cable knitting, it shows more effectively. That's why the background is important too. Okay? There we go. Did I actually increase? I think I forgot to increase at the raglan line just now because this is supposed to be row number 3. So I have to increase, right? I probably go back and, you know, increase later. Anyway, I'm checking whether the sleeves are long enough or not. And please follow my written pattern and finished the separation of the sleeve, and now I knit enough for tummy. But I still want to, knit back piece, right? So as usual, I am going to knit across the front the last time. And this has to be done on knitting row, which is row number 1 or row number 3. And I am going to hold all the front stitch onto stitch holder, and after this I'm going to decrease both sides and keep knitting the cable design. And this part is pretty much same as any other dog sweater. So this is decreasing starts, knit 1 and SSK. After knit 1 SSK to decrease, I'm trying to make the little curve in between front and back. So after 1 stitch decrease this side, just keep knitting until 3 stitch before end. So I don't need the bigging marker anymore. And then 3 stitch, you have to do knit 2 together to decrease 1 stitch, then knit 1. So you just keep knitting. And then I will meet you the last cable row, which is row number 3. Whenever you hit desired length, you have to wait for me on row number 3, because now you have to knit up and connect front and back. Also, you have to decrease the cable stitch from 4 stitch to 2 stitch to get ready for rib. So this is row number 3, which means cable knitting row, right? Okay, so one thing I have to make sure, I just finished row number 2. Now it's starting on row number 3, cable knitting, and you have to decrease some stitch from cable stitch. All right, so here comes decreasing from cable. The back piece is row number 3. You're supposed to do cable knitting, right? However, I do cable knitting, but at the same time, I have to decrease the stitch, because do you remember the concept of this tutorial is transition from rib to cable, nice and smooth, and same as the other side. Now transition from cable to rib, nice and smoothly. So I have to do twist. At the same time, I have to decrease stitches. So now, right side shift, which is C4B, right? So I have to pick up 2 stitch from cable needle and then put the cable needle at the back because C4B, right? And now you have to decrease. So you put the cable at the back, and now I have 2 stitch on the left needle front and then 2 stitch on the cable needle at the back. Then you will do knit 2 together, 1 each. Knit 2 together and drop 2 stitch off. There we go. And then same thing, 1 stitch from left, 1 stitch from needle, the cable needle, and then knit 2 together there. There we go. Now I just decreased 2 stitch and then I did right twist as well. This is the last cable. So after that, purl 2, then now cable for front. So the concept same. Picking up the 2 stitch with cable needle and front. So hold it front. And then same thing. Knit 2 together with 1 from the cable needle and 1 from the left needle. So 1 from cable, 1 from left needle. Knit 2 together there. Take your time and then drop the stitch, 2 stitch off. And then last stitch from cable needle and 1 stitch from left needle. Knit 2 together there. There you go. Now I decreased 2 stitch. Also I did left twist. That's about it. So now you have 2 knit stitch and not disturbing any purl stitch. So after this you can do knit 2 and purl 2 rib. Nice and smooth. Just like, the transition from knit 2 purl to rib to cable. By the way, these increasing and decreasing method is just one of the techniques. There's so many ways to increase and decrease. So this is just the one pattern to increase and decrease invisible. All right? So let's do this together again. This is C4B. So I put the cable behind, then knit 2 together. 1 from left needle and 1 from cable needle, then knit 2 together. And do the same thing. And next cable should be C4F. So picking up the 2 stitch with the cable needle and put cable needle out front. Okay? Then now picking up 1 from the cable and 1 from left needle. Then knit 2 together. Again, same thing. If I put the cable needle out front, it's going to be left shift. If I put the cable needle at the back, it's going to be right shift twist. So if you remember this, it's easy. You just see the cable, and if the cable is, left shifting, you just do the left shift cable knit, which is C4F, something like that. So, once you start doing the cable, you don't need to actually look at the pattern really. Okay, so there you go. One more knit 2 together. So after you decrease stitches for the cable, which means you're ready to start making a rib. That's why at the very last cable row, which is row number 3, you have to decrease. Okay, so you just have to knit and purl, And you have to keep the back piece as is, right? And rest of them, you kind of have to adjust if you have to. All right? Again, you don't really have to worry about too much as long as you keep the back piece as is. As is means the back piece should be now need to purl 2, right? And then rest of them has to be, continue need to purl 2. So you kind of have to think the total of the whole stitch should be multiple of 4. Then you can start with knit and end with purl. And if you have to adjust, you can decrease 1 or 2 stitch, or you can increase 1 or 2 stitch, something like that. Anyway, so the side, no stitch, so you have to knit up, and then front piece, you just knit all the way, right? Then now this is the new begin. Then let's make a rib, which is repeat off, knit 2 and purl 2 again. Keep the back piece as is, because the concept is you don't want to disturb any purl stitch, like a beautiful transition from cable knitting to rib. You know what I'm saying? So the back piece should be knit over knit, purl over purl, and rest of them just keep continuing, the rib part. And whenever you hit the desired length, you just have to bind off. I use the one size bigger needle, so it will stretch a little bit. So let's see. This is beautiful transition from knit to purl to rib to cable knitting. Do you remember I increase right after the rib for the cable knitting part, right? No increasing for or decreasing for purl stitch area. And then start knitting, cable, which is 4 stitches total, right? And then whenever you done, there we go, decrease 2 stitch right there to get ready for knit to purl to rib. So it's beautiful transition there. Just like the rib, but in between rib there's a cable rib, right? You don't need to if you don't want to, but sometimes it's nice. Anyway, so now I want to talk about how to connect the sleeves, because I usually pick up 1 extra stitch for both sides, and then I do SSK and knit 2 together to try to minimize the gap. But some people still say there's little gap. I don't like. But whenever you weave the ends off, you can actually close that gap. But I will show you same concept, but you need to knit up 1 more extra. So I am going to pick up 2 both ends, so a total of 4 extra stitch, and then try to minimize the gap around there. All right. And obviously, where I add the new cast, you have to knit up. Okay. I'm talking about the extra knit up, actually outside of the new cast. I usually pick up 1, but now I am going to pick up 2. I just add the 1 marker just before the last original stitch. And I am going to show you where I am going to pick up 2 extra stitch before the cast on. That's my new cast starts. The in between last and first new cast, there's 2 kind of running thread. This is kind of divider stitch. So outside of divider stitch, there is 2 running thread, this one and that one. And same as this side. Okay? That's my original first stitch, right? This one right after before the original first one, and that's my divider stitch. And the other side, that's kind of, running thread too, right there. That's thread, those thread I am going to pick up. Okay, I used to pick up 1 stitch there, but now 2, both side. Okay, so let's do that. It's a little bit different, so you gotta watch very carefully. Okay, and if you don't like this way, don't do it. Okay, anyway, so those 2 running thread I am going to not knit up, pick up. Okay, so with the right needle, okay, the first running thread is right after the the last original stitch, picking up the running thread from the behind like that. See, from the behind. Okay, and then now you know which one. Next running thread. Okay, after the kind of divider stitch, now you're going to pick up from front like that. Okay, after last original stitch, you pick up 2 stitch, and then the knitting up starts. This is where you add new cast when you separate the sleeve from the body. Okay, so I add 4 new cast. So now I am going to knit up 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, make sure about it. And 4. Again, I didn't show you how to separate the sleeve, but if you ever knitted it my Raglan sweater, you know what I'm talking about. And I am going to add 1 more clip marker just before the last new cast. Okay, right after the orange marker, that's the last original stitch, right? And then 2 extra pickup stitch, and then right after the green marker, that's gonna be last new cast, knit up. All right, so now I am going to pick up those 2 running thread extra. Okay, the third one, okay, that one and that one I am going to knit up. So watch carefully from behind again. There you go. So now the last pickup from front. So always pick up from behind first one, and next one always pick up from front. But this time it's a little bit different. So I'm actually getting ready for the next step. So right now I pick up 2, right? And second pick up stitch, okay? You hook onto left needle like that. Just take your time. So the first stitch is extra, which is 4th extra, right? And then the next stitch is the first original stitch, and you have to knit together. So the concept is same, knitting up or picking up the extra, and then SSK or knit together to decrease. So more stitch, knit up and pick up, and then decrease. So same concept. So anyway, I just get rid of the 4th extra by knit together, right? And you still have 3 extra stitch, which you have to get rid of it. Okay, so meet you at the orange marker. Okay, here comes close to orange marker, right? So you have to knit until orange marker, and we have to get rid of extra stitch after the orange and after the green marker. Okay, that's the 3rd extra. The 4th extra I already got rid of by knit together, right? Earlier. So now you have to get rid of 1, 2, 3. That's the 3rd one. Okay, that's the last stitch you have to get rid of. Now, can you see? So the first extra stitch I pick up, I have to get rid of with the last original stitch. Okay, so knit until the marker, and right after the orange marker, that's gonna be last original, right? So last original, you have to flip, okay, just like a SSK, but not the 2 stitch. The first one, flip, just like SSK, and hook onto left needle. That's it. And then knit 2 together, okay, back loop. Knit just like SSK. Sorry, this is the 3rd time I said. But you have to, flip first stitch, that's it. And then you have to kind of knit it together with back loop. There you go. That's it. Now, first stitch is the 2nd extra, right? And then the 2nd stitch should be the first new cast. I just did knit 2 together. And then knit until the green marker, right? After the green marker, there's the last new cast, knit up. It's a little confusing. And then 4th extra pick up stitch. There you go. Again, you have to flip first one. Hook onto left needle. Then knit 2 together with back loop. So the first decrease always kind of SSK, but only first stitch you just have to flip. And second extra, stitch you have to get rid of, knit 2 together. That's how you remember. That's pretty much it. And then you just connect everything. So now you just have to knit until your desired length and then add rib. And you can see little, gap right now. However, when you start knitting, that gap is getting smaller and smaller. And again, you cannot close completely. However, if you knit up more stitch and then decrease more stitch, which should be minimize the gap. Okay. Anyway, if you want, you can try that. Okay. And I'm trying to actually tell you, I just, use the smaller needle for rib and then one size bigger needle for the bind off. That's about it. So here is the connection part. Still little, gap, but much better. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so this is it. I hope it helps. Again, if you need to watch basic Raglan sweater tutorial, please go to my description box. Okay? Enjoy knitting. Bye for now.